Hi, fifth grade readers. So I'm going to be reading aloud the checkpoint. I will go ahead and read the passages. And then if you would like, you can stop the video there and listen to it as many times as you need to. Otherwise, if you're ready, I'll move on to the questions. So you're on Illuminate. You should be able to see what I see on my screen. The first title of the first article is called The Fort Sumter Attack. Fort Sumter was a military base in Charleston, South Carolina. In 1861, it became the site of the first battle of the Civil War. The fort was under the control of Union troops in the command of Major Robert Anderson. It was attacked by Confederate forces led by Brigadier General P.G.T. Beauregard. This passage describes the attack on Fort Sumter. So that was kind of an introduction to the article. Fort Sumter. On April 10, 1861, Brigadier General Beauregard, in command of the Provisional Confederate Forces at Charleston, South Carolina, demanded the surrender of the Union garrison. This has a 1 next to it, and so a Union garrison is a military post. Also, the troops stationed there are called a garrison. So he demanded the surrender of the Union garrison of Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor. Garrison Commander Anderson refused. On April 12th, Confederate batteries opened fire on the fort, which was unable to reply effectively. At 2:30 p.m., April 13th, Major Anderson surrendered Fort Sumter, evacuating the garrison on the following day. The bombardment of Fort Sumter was the opening engagement of the American Civil War. Although there were no casualties during the bombardment, one Union artillerist, has a 2 next to it, that's a soldier who fires artillery such as cannons, was killed and 3 wounded, 1 mortally, meaning he died, when a cannon exploded prematurely while firing a salute during the evacuation on April 14th. If you remember, this article pretty much summarizes what we've already learned about Fort Sumter. There's a second passage from The Story of the Civil War by John Codman Ropes. This passage tells about the effects of the attack on Fort Sumter. Paragraph 1. The effect produced by the capture of Fort Sumter was immediate and unified throughout the North. The Northern public trembled with anger at the news of the unprovoked attack on Anderson's little garrison. They were outraged that the flag of the country was lowered at Fort Sumter. The emotions of the people were strong, and they were outspoken beyond measure. Their reaction was also universal. Effect number 2. In the past, some had looked on the crisis as the natural result of a bad anti-slavery policy. Others had defended the South's position. Some had even threatened to use force in case there should be an attempt to conquer the seceded states. All of these people were now declaring their devotion to the Union. The Northern people felt that their patience had been despised, and they thought their tolerance had been repaid by violence. The time for action had come, and they were ready for war to the bitter end. Effect number 3. President Lincoln understood the feeling of the country, so he did not need to wait until it had been expressed through the ordinary methods of public opinion. Instead, he instantly saw his opportunity, and he immediately issued a proclamation. He claimed that for some time now the laws of the United States had been opposed. These laws were ignored in South Carolina and other states by very powerful forces. The rebellion was too powerful to be conquered by judges or the marshals. Lincoln stated that he had thought it was time to assemble the militia of the several states. He asked for 75,000 men to help suppress the rebellion and enforce the law. Effect number 4. With a unity and enthusiasm which astonished the most intelligent observers, the Northern states responded to the president's request. Several states sent more men than they had to, and the eagerness and enthusiasm of the people knew no bounds. So if you'd like to listen to those two texts be read out loud again, you can pause the video here and listen to them again. Question number 1, Part A, which tells me that there will be a Part B. Which of these texts should students read to learn how the attack on Fort Sumter affected people's emotions? So if you go back and look at both of these articles, you can reread the introduction to see, was this passage describing how people felt, or was it describing facts? So this says this passage describes the attack on Fort Sumter. The second passage says this passage tells about the effects of the attack on Fort Sumter. So would you choose the first article only? The second article, both texts discuss how the attack affected people's emotions, or neither text discussed how the attack affected people's emotions. When you're ready, you're going to choose your answer. If you need to flag it, you can go ahead and do that as well. To move on, you click here. Part B. Which of these quotes best supports the answer to Part A? You need to select 2. So depending on what you said, if you said the first article was the correct answer, then you would be looking in this first article. If you said the second article only, then you would be looking for quotes from the second article. If you said both, then you could be looking for quotes from both. If you said neither, then you should be looking for no answer, which should tell you that that's not the correct response. You also are selecting 2 answers here. So please make sure in order to move on, you've clicked 2 answers. A. On April 10th, 1861, Brigadier General Beauregard, in command of the Provisional Confederate Forces at Charleston, South Carolina, demanded the surrender of the Union garrison of Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor. That came from the first article. So did that show you how people were affected emotionally? B. Although there were no casualties during the bombardment, 1 Union artillerist was killed and 3 wounded, 1 mortally, when a cannon exploded prematurely while firing a salute during the evacuation on April 14th. This is also from the first article, the Fort Sumter attack. Did that show people's emotions after the attack? C. The Northern public trembled with anger at the news of the unprovoked attack on Anderson's little garrison. This comes from the second article. Does that show the effect on people's emotions? D. These laws were ignored in South Carolina and other states by very powerful forces. This comes from paragraph 3 of the second article. Does that show the emotions or effects of people? E. Several states sent more men than they had to, and the eagerness and enthusiasm of the people knew no bounds. This is from the second article, paragraph 4. Did that show the effect on the emotions of people? Once you've selected 2, you can go ahead and move on to the next question. Part A. Which of the following statements describes the point of view of both passages? So you're thinking about which point of view, the person writing the article, what point of view did they have while writing the article? Again, I would come back to this kind of summary statement about both the first and second article. The first article is written as this passage describes the attack on Fort Sumter. This second article is telling about the effects of the attack. So what happened afterwards? Both passages suggest that the attack on Fort Sumter was the start of the Civil War. B. Both passages suggest that the attack on Fort Sumter was the end of the Civil War. C. Both passages suggest that Lincoln used the attack on Fort Sumter to gain support. D. Both passages suggest that Lincoln waited before addressing the public. I highly suggest using the answer strike method So when you find an answer that is completely wrong, you can go ahead and click it and it will exit it out for you. If you do that on accident, you can just click it again. When you're ready, after choosing your answer, you're going to move on to question 4. So based on what you pick for question 3, now you're looking for the text evidence to back that up. So part B says, which 2 statements best support your answer to part A? You can always go back and refresh your memory as to what you chose. The bombardment of Fort Sumter was the opening engagement of the American Civil War. B. Garrison Commander Anderson refused. C. On April 12th, Confederate batteries opened fire on the fort, which was unable to reply effectively. D. In the past, some had looked on the crisis as the natural result of bad anti-slavery policy. E. The time for action had come and they were ready for war to the bitter end. F. He claimed that sometime now the laws of the United States had been opposed. Remember, you're choosing 2 statements, so make sure you're choosing 2 answers. When you're ready, you're going to move on to the last question. This is an open-ended response question, which means you're typing your answer. What point of view toward the attack on Fort Sumter is expressed in the story of the Civil War? That's the second passage. That is not expressed in the Fort Sumter attack. So which point of view toward the attack on Fort Sumter is in the second passage, but not expressed in the Fort Sumter attack, the first article? How does the author of the story of the Civil War express this point of view? So a sentence starter might be to use the title of the second article, the story of the Civil War, So first, you might say the story of the Civil War point of view differs from the first article because, so how is the second story different, told differently than the first section, the first article? And then you would answer the second question with the author of the second article, right? The story of the Civil War expresses their point of view. You're going to tell me how they express their point of view. How do they share about their opinion? This should be at least 4 sentences. When you are done, you'll hit review and finish test. You can always go back to any of your questions that haven't been answered, and then you'll click finish for a blue check on your screen. Good luck. It's the last grade you're going to have in 5th grade reading this year.